Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a menu of important issues to discuss. This week is no different. I want to begin by recognizing and welcoming our viewers who are joining us on television in Region 5 from Georgetown all the way to from Mahaica all the way to Ithaca. Good evening and welcome to another program of Issues in the News and across the Berbice River. I want to extend greetings to all those of you who are joining us on the eastern bank of the Berbice River, as well as New Amsterdam, Kanji, and along the Quarantine Coast, all the way up the Quarantine River. Good evening and welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To all of you who are joining us on Freedom Radio, good evening and welcome. And last but not least, to the tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and as far as Australia and New Zealand. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Hundreds of you have already begun to join us. Radesh Genda, Ravi Singh, Anand Gangadin, Charlene Suraj, Zalina Khan, Mark Wilson, Musa Ramdas. I saw Ali Ahmad, Bud Wahid, Tilak Dari Bikam, Kesh Sharma, Boyo Tarachand, and so many of you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. Two significant events have occurred yesterday in our country, and I want to deal with both of those events. Yesterday, we had a ruling from Justice Damoni Young of the High Court of Guyana in relation to an important case and in a judgment that addressed certain important issues. That occurred yesterday, and yesterday also of paramount importance is the delivery by our finance minister of the 2023 budget for Guyana. And those are the two issues that I want to focus on. So without any delay, let's get straight into the program. And I want to discuss the ruling of Justice Young first. Now, as you all can recall, on December the 29th, 2021, the opposition, in protest, I suppose, against the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill, behaved in an unprecedented, vulgar, and unruly manner in the National Assembly, breaking the mace, assaulting the clerk and other employees of the Parliament, blowing whistle, dancing and gyrating in the well of the Parliament, disobeying the Speaker's orders on many occasions, refusing to take their seats when ordered to do so by the Speaker, and destroying the public address system of the National Assembly. It was a spectacle never seen in a parliament in the Caribbean. As a result, 8 of those members were taken to the Privileges Committee by virtue of the standing orders of the National Assembly, and that Privileges Committee heard the allegations of misbehavior, reviewed the tapes of the night's proceedings, afforded the members of parliament certain facilities, and deliberated on the question of their misconduct. That Privileges Committee, of which I was a member, found that the 8 parliamentarians behaved in a manner unbecoming of the National Assembly, that by their conduct they violated the privileges of Parliament, that by their conduct they were guilty of contempt of Parliament, and by their conduct they brought the administration of the National Assembly into ridicule and disrepute. In consequence, they were found guilty by the Privileges Committee, and the Privileges Committee recommended in a report that they should be penalized by the National Assembly in the form of suspensions of 4 consecutive sittings and 6 consecutive sittings. In accordance with the standing order, that report was laid and adopted by the National Assembly, and a motion was moved and successfully passed that the recommendation of the Privileges Committee be adopted and enforced by the National Assembly. As a result, the members of Parliament from the opposition benches were suspended for 4 consecutive weeks and 6 consecutive weeks, 8 of them. Rather than accept that they have committed a wrong, they launched 2 proceedings, 2 sets of proceedings. One, they challenged the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill on the ground that they did not get an opportunity to speak on that bill, as well as that the bill was illegally passed because there was no mace. These are the people who broke the mace. And these are the people who, by their unruly, disgusting, and vulgar conduct, they disqualified themselves from speaking. In fact, they did not offer to speak. Then they turn around and take the Parliament to court. So that's one set of proceedings. Those proceedings are pending before Justice Navindra Singh, and a ruling will be handed down there shortly. They file another set of proceedings in which they challenge the suspension imposed by the National Assembly. They argued that the suspension was unlawful, that the suspension was unconstitutional, that they were not afforded a right to be heard. The case was assigned to Justice Damon Young. When the case came up for hearing, myself, the Attorney General was sued, the Speaker of the National Assembly was sued, and the Clerk of the National Assembly was sued. I appeared in person, and lawyers appeared for the Clerk and the Speaker. And we decided, all the lawyers appearing for the respondents, decided that we will challenge the jurisdiction of the court to hear the proceedings. Why? Because there are certain peculiar legal doctrines and principles which apply to the Parliament. And we feel that the court cannot inquire into certain proceedings of the Parliament. All sides were required to lay over detailed submissions. And we did. I argued that that is not that Parliament is above the law, that Parliament, however, has certain functional autonomy. Parliament is, the Constitution is supreme, and Parliament is created by the Constitution and granted certain latitude and functional autonomy by which Parliament must operate. That once Parliament does not contravene the Constitution, then Parliament is free to regulate its own business and to discipline its officers. Parliament can contravene the Constitution in two ways. One, if Parliament makes laws that are inconsistent with the Constitution, those laws will be unconstitutional. And if there's an express provision of the Constitution directed to the Parliament for the Parliament to behave in a particular manner or for the Parliament to follow a particular procedure, and if Parliament breaches that particular procedure or that particular constitutional provision, then Parliament would be acting unlawfully. So, for example, Parliament is authorized to pass budgets in a particular way by the Constitution. If that process and procedure set out in the Constitution is not followed by Parliament in the passing of budget, then that can be challenged because that is unlawful. If, for example, well, not if, but the Constitution also says how, for example, the opposition leader is to be elected. He is to be elected by members of Parliament on the opposition benches. If, for example, the government decides to elect the opposition leader, then Parliament or the government members of the Parliament would be acting unconstitutionally and unlawfully. And outside of those two areas, Parliament has freedom to conduct its own business and to regulate its own business. The Constitution itself says that. The Constitution says that Parliament may make rules to regulate its business. Those rules are called standing orders. And the doctrine of parliamentary privileges say that Parliament has a particular set of rules that must govern it. And those rules include decisions of the Parliament on internal procedural business of the Parliament are final and are not to be interfered with by any other tribunal, including the judiciary. The judiciary can look in, and if a constitutional provision is not contravened, then the judiciary can do no more. In the same way that Parliament cannot tell the judiciary how to determine cases that are before the judiciary cannot tell Parliament how to conduct its internal parliamentary business. It cannot tell Parliament how to discipline and when to discipline its officers. Parliament retains exclusive jurisdiction and supervisory control over matters such as discipline of its members. And we submitted that the disciplining of these parliamentarians was a matter exclusively for Parliament to determine by parliamentary process, procedures, and standing orders. And that once Parliament has done so, then no other agency, including the judiciary, can intervene and interrogate or investigate or hear or determine complaints arising therefrom. We supported our arguments with case law authorities, not only from Guyana, but across the Caribbean and as far as Fiji, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and elsewhere. And the cases consistently show that parliamentary privilege is a doctrine recognized by law and recognized by the constitution of countries that have a constitution. That the doctrine of separation of powers imbues Parliament with this aura of autonomy and independence, which allows Parliament to conduct its affairs without interference, in the same way that the judiciary must conduct its affairs without interference. If the judiciary contravenes the Constitution or contravenes the law, then the judiciary can be sued. But outside of that, the judiciary cannot be sued. The judiciary has freedom to make mistakes if it wishes. Parliament is the same thing. Unless the law and the Constitution is contravened or are contravened, then no one has a right, or no other organ of state has a right to interfere with parliamentary business. And one needs to understand these concepts and precepts. Clearly, the opposition does not understand them. You would recall that when I was the Attorney General before, I sued the Parliament when the joint opposition, holding a one-seat majority, cut the national budget twice. I sued them 2 times and I won. Why? Because I was able to show that in cutting the national budget, they contravened the Constitution. You would recall that they gagged Clement Rohi from speaking. I went to the court again. And though that was an internal proceeding of the Parliament, though it was an internal business of the Parliament, I was able to show that a constitutional right was contravened and a constitutional provision was contravened, and I won that case as well. They were unable to do that here. And Justice Young, in a very comprehensive and reasoned judgment, upheld all of our submissions. A judgment numbering some 30 pages in length, where Her Honor reviewed our submissions and the law, including case law authorities that we put before the court, and held that we were correct. The decision of the learned judge is of significant importance to the doctrine of separation of powers. It is of significant importance to constitutional democracy and constitutional supremacy. The decision is important for the rule of law. The decision is important because it entrenches and ensconces parliamentary democracy. So when people misbehave again in the Parliament, they must know that Parliament can sanction them, and they can't run to the judiciary for protection, because the judiciary has no right to intervene unless the circumstances are such that would justify the intervention. The judge also awarded costs against the 8 of them to the tune of $350,000 for each respondent. So they have to pay each respondent, the Attorney General, the Speaker, and the Clerk of the National Assembly, $350,000 each. I am happy that that decision is now out, and the record has been set straight. I dare say that the judge is absolutely correct, and any appeal against that decision would fail or would properly fail because the judge simply stated what the law on this issue is, that Parliament is supreme within the context of a constitution that is supreme, and that Parliament has powers to regulate its own business without interference. If every time Parliament decides to discipline one of its members, or some person in the Parliament disagrees with a decision of the Parliament, that person can go to the court and challenge Parliament's decision. Well, then we might as well let the court run the Parliament. And hopefully the court will allow Parliament to run the court. If you understand what I'm saying, then you will understand how anarchy will descend upon this land. This judge properly and correctly restrained herself and refused to exercise jurisdiction in the matter as we invited her to do. And Her Honor had sound basis for so doing, which basis is recorded in a judgment spanning some 30-odd pages. The judgment is in the public domain, and every person interested in constitutional law, parliamentary practices, and parliamentary democracy is encouraged to read the judgment to get an insight of how Parliament operates within a constitutional democracy where the Constitution itself is supreme. So that was a good decision, and it will be there to guide parliamentarians, judges, and indeed members of the public for the future. So I am looking at your comments here to see if you would like me to address any particular issue before I move to the other matter, which is the budget. Somebody is asking me where they can find the judgment. The judgment is, I have it on email. The press has it. So it should be out there. I don't know how I can get it to you, but we have some, but how was it not Parliament? The person is asking, how was it that Rohi was gagged by the Parliament and Rohi was able to win his case? Rohi was able to win his case because the Parliament, the Constitution rather, is the Constitution that permits a member to be there. And a member cannot be gagged, cannot be penalized for the performance of an executive function. You're taking me into deep law. Rohi was then the Minister of Home Affairs, and they felt that Rohi did not act properly as a minister. Now, Parliament can sanction a minister for the discharge of his executive function. Ministers are appointed by the president. The executive must discipline its officers for non-performance of executive functions, not Parliament. And that is where they fell into error. That Parliament of the time wanted to exercise discipline over Clement Rohi, not for something that he did in the Parliament. Rohi did nothing in the Parliament. And that was the distinction. Rohi, they claimed, did not perform or was not functioning competently as a Minister of Home Affairs. That is a matter for the President who appointed him. The President must disappoint him. If he misbehaves in the Parliament, well, then the Parliament will deal with that parliamentary misbehavior. But he cannot be sanctioned in the Parliament for non-performance of an executive duty. That's the realm of the executive. And that there demonstrates the separation of powers doctrine. Sometimes people ask that they don't understand these things. But you have to understand the law to understand these things. It may look duplicitous to some. It may look it looks duplicitous to the opposition, I know, because they can't seem to get it right. During the elections period, the 5 months period, they tried. I went to court with Holadar and I got through. When they attempted to go to court, the court said it has no jurisdiction. It has no jurisdiction. And we went to court and we got through. One needs to understand the law. When they filed the elections petition, it got dismissed. And when they went to the Court of Appeal, we said the Court of Appeal didn't have jurisdiction to hear the appeal. They disagreed with me, they go to the CCJ, and the CCJ said the same thing. The Court of Appeal didn't have jurisdiction, no appeal lies. So they're very frustrated. Understanding of the law is what is required. And one needs to read the law to understand it. So it may appear confusing, but the law is commonsensical. If I am appointed by Irfan Ali, the president, how can the opposition leader move a no confidence vote against me in the parliament? They didn't appoint me. They didn't elect me. They had moved a no confidence motion against Rohi, and because Rohi did not resign, they want to gag him. They didn't appoint Rohi. Neither did they elect Rohi. And Rohi did not misbehave or contravene any parliamentary practice or procedure. Rohi didn't misbehave. So how they can discipline Rohi? To me, that's common sense. If I didn't hire you, I can't fire you. If I didn't hire you, I can't discipline you. The man who hired you has to do that. That to me is common sense. The law is common sense. But common sense is not that common after all. So I hope that I have shed some light on these issues, and now we have a greater understanding of these concepts. And that's one of the main purpose of this program, to educate people, to make you aware of important principles, concepts, and precepts that impact upon your lives. You should not be allowed to live robotically and follow. You must not follow rules and procedures and concepts without understanding what they are and the reason why you must comply with them. And that is why public awareness and public education is important. And that's one of the purpose of this program. But let's not now move to our budget. So, yesterday, my distinguished brother and colleague, the Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh, presented on behalf of our government our budget for the year 2023. Now, a lot of people do not understand budgets, and that's why we have to spend some time distilling some preliminary matters. So, a budget, for example, for 2023 is not an abstract document. We went to the electorate in 2020 on an elections campaign with a manifesto. And in that manifesto, we set out a 5-year plan for the development of our country. Of course, by the nature of the document and because of space constraints, etc., you can't outline every single thing. You are required to outline the broad programs, outline your ideals and philosophy, outline broad policy guidelines, highlight the areas of governance and government that will be significant, outline the social and welfare programs that are intended to benefit the people, talk about your economic plan and where you plan to get revenue streams and how you intend to finance your plans and programs over a 5-year period. That is in our manifesto. And we told you in that manifesto and in that election campaign that within a 5-year period, we will deliver plan after plan on an annual basis. Now, this is the 3rd year of our government. So this is the 3rd installment of our 5 years plan. So that's the first thing that we must understand. And I dare say that our plan, as projected in our manifesto and explained on the campaign trail, is unfolding better than we anticipated. So in its 3rd year, our development plan has accelerated. The economy is performing even better than we had anticipated. So our economy, for example, grew by 62.3% overall. 62.3% is the extent of the growth of our economy, far more than we anticipated. So the government should be congratulated for this achievement. And the people of Guyana should be congratulated for this achievement. And this was done a 62.3% overall growth of the economy. After a post-COVID period, this is remarkable by any standard. And this rate of growth must stand among the highest in the world. And this is the overall. In the non-oil economy, we have grown by 11.5%. In the non-oil economy. This is perhaps, again, the highest growth in the Caribbean. This is in non-oil sector. It shows that our economy is being diversified properly, that there is not over-reliance on oil, that we are managing the economy in such a way that benefits deriving from the oil and gas sector are spreading over to the other sector, precipitating and catalyzing growth in those non-oil sectors as well. And as we address the issue of energy, which we are addressing with the gas to shore project and the many, many other hydro projects that Dr. Singh referred to in his budget, once we are able to tackle that issue of oil and gas, of cheap energy, then you will see the real blossoming of our economy outside of the oil and gas sector. Our GDP grew by 25.1%. 25.1%. That's GDP growth. This has to be the highest in the Caribbean, if not one of the highest in the world. Public sector investment program grew by 147.2% in 2022. 147.2% public sector investment program. I don't want to bore you with a lot of statistics. In our budget for this year, 54.5 billion will be spent in housing and developing areas for housing. 54.5 billion. Thousands of Guyanese are going to benefit. Imagine $54 billion in one sector, the housing sector. Do you know what are the spin-off benefits? In the expenditure of this money alone, I am talking about the creation of employment. I am talking about goods and services that will be purchased with this money. Forget the output, which is the house at the end of the road, or the tens of thousands of homes. I am talking about the road to get there, the economic benefits, the economic activities that will be generated with the expenditure of this kind of capital injection into the economy. $19.7 billion for drainage and irrigation. Now, we are being accused of not addressing the poor. We are being accused of not managing in the economy in such a way that the people on the ground are not benefiting. So who are going to benefit from all of this? Who are going to be employed when these monies are going to be spent? Who are going to get these houses that they will call homes in these dozens of new housing schemes that will have to be developed and houses constructed thereon? What is wrong with these people? This opposition. They want us to walk around and give every Guyanese $1 million US in their hand. So everybody must stop work and just eat and live. That is what they want. Instant gratification. What we are doing here, we are building a country. We are planning an economy and managing an economy in a sustainable manner for the long-term and medium-term future for Guyana. That is what we are doing. That is why we are realigning, we are building $19 billion in drainage and irrigation. This is adjustments of canals, building of cokers, concreting piling off trenches that are falling in, roads are falling in. We never had the money before to do these types of infrastructure. But a visionless opposition can't see that. Can't see that. 2.1 billion will be spent on school feeding programs. Who will get this money? Norton says family and friends of the PPP. Well, when they were in the opposition, they abolish the cash grant. They abolish it. The cash grant to school children. They abolish it, you know. We double it. We brought it back and double it. This year, we have raised it from 25,000 to 35,000 per child. And Norton says, what is in the budget for poor people? Norton wants us to take all the money in the treasury and just share it out on the streets of this country. That's what he wants us to do. When they were in the opposition, they abolished the grant. We not only restoring it, we have not only restored it, we doubled it, and now we are moving it from 25,000 to 35,000. The railway embankment road. Road brings development. We are doing a 4-lane highway on the railway embankment road on the east coast of Demerara, from Sheriff Street all the way to Mahaica. $16.6 billion is being spent on that one project. Don't we have to build Guyana? Don't we have to, how are we going to move this nation forward? We don't have to build it. We don't have to build roadways. This year, the construction will begin on the Demerara Harbor Bridge. 165 million US dollars. 5.2 billion will begin the work for a new Demerara Harbor Bridge. Friends and families of me go across the Harbor Bridge. It's better these guys don't speak rather than say what they are saying and embarrass themselves and their supporters. So the Demerara Harbor Bridge, 165 million US, it will start this year. 5.2 billion will be spent on that project. This is money that will be injected in this economy, you know. Every single Guyanese will benefit from the spin-offs. Just imagine how many truckloads of sand will have to be bought and dropped there. How many workers will get employment on any of these projects. The Palmyra to Crabwood Creek Highway, that's from Kanji all the way to Crabwood Creek. 27.7 billion will be spent to upgrade and expand that highway. That's a proper highway that will be built there. Apparently my friends and my family is going to drive on that highway. This year, construction work will begin on the Gas to Shore project. 43.3 billion. 43.3 billion is set aside for works to begin on the Gas to Shore project right across the river. Imagine $43.3 billion will be spent on the west bank of Demerara. This kind of money has never been spent on the west bank or west coast of Demerara. In the history of Guyana, it is going to be spent this year. I have a whole long sheet here that I'm going through. 1 billion will be spent on retrofitting health centers across the country. Or every village almost, or every other village has a health center. $1 billion will be spent. 830 million to complete the Bartica Hospital. Bartica Hospital, 830 million. Apparently, my friends and my families are going to benefit from that. We are continuing to invest heavily in the agriculture sector. The agri sector grew by over 11.9% in 2022. With the investments that we are doing in soybean production, in crops, in livestock, in $19 billion in DNI, agro will expand. I heard Norton said that he didn't hear anything about food processing and about manufacturing. This fellow believes that we can move an economy from primary production to manufacturing overnight. This guy is a dreamer. The roads that we are building, the infrastructure that we are building, the gas to shore project that we are building, that is what will lay the foundation to address the issues that are affecting the manufacturing sector. Cheap energy, transportation from road to market, making more lands accessible. That is what will move us from primary production to manufacturing, Mr. Norton. It can't happen with the spin of a toss. $2 billion will be again injected in the agro sector, directed to provide for food security. And I have a whole host of sheets here. How many infrastructural projects and the different measures. Old age pension moved from 28,000 to 33,000. 28,000 to 33,000, 5,000. I hear Norton said I can't mind anybody. Old age pension is not intended to mind anyone. It's a pension. It's a pension. The income tax threshold increased from 75,000 to 85,000. Do you know how, when you total all these grants and all these measures, do you know how much money, billions in disposable income are now made available? Public assistance moved from 14,000 to 16,000. Low income mortgage ceiling to be lifted from 15 million to 20 million. So up to 20 million now, you can go and get low mortgage financing, 3 and 4%, up to 20 million. That's why we are spending so much in the housing sector. You see how these things tie up? Not only are we expanding exponentially the housing sector, but at the other end, we are ensuring that we have a financing arrangement to allow you to borrow low-income loans. And we are giving you more cash flow by increasing income tax threshold so that you have greater disposable income now to pay for your low-income mortgage. Duties on motor vehicles have been decreased. Freight for importation, freight charges again have been decreased. $5 billion has been put aside for as cost of living measures. We are expanding the part-time job creation to help the less fortunate and the unemployed. And I have not even touched my sector as yet. I have just dealt with the broad areas. $781.9 billion. Not financed through loans, financed through the oil revenue and from the sale of carbon credit. That is where the bulk of the financing coming from. You will hear much more on the budget as the week unfolds. Of course, I have no doubt that you will be following the debates which will soon begin on the floor of the National Assembly in relation to this budget. And you will hear the lamentations from the other side. No jobs created. You will hear the budget doesn't provide for poor people. Well, I don't know who are going to get all these, who will benefit from all of this monies that are going to be expended in the economy this year. We have to import labor this year with the mega projects that are in the budget. We certainly will have to import labor this year because we don't have the labor force in Guyana to deal with this. We don't. So we have to find, but yet you will hear the opposition say that no job creation. No job creation, they will tell you. No new jobs created. I don't understand what they want. What are they speaking about? We don't have the people to do the jobs that are being created. That was so 2 years ago, and it's getting progressively worse. Yet you will hear the opposition tell you, find out the rate that people are charging in the private sector now, the construction industry, to work, skilled and unskilled labor. Find out the rate per day. And still, you can't find the people. My friend, I live in this economy. I function in this economy not only as a minister. I have business here as well. I have investments in this country. So I wear many caps. I am an employer outside of the government. Many people work with me in different endeavors. So I know, I have a fairly good understanding of the real world. I am not like those in the opposition who apparently have never lived, never done anything constructive. And I can tell you what the reality is out there. This budget continues to lay that foundation for the type of economic kickoff to continue to take place. Economic activity and social progress will gain greater momentum during the year 2023 in a manner far quicker and more exponentially than we ourselves have anticipated. But that's good. The Guyanese are the ultimate beneficiary. I will speak more on my budget and the plan in the legal sector as we go on in days to come. But Guyana continues to be one of the most sought after destinations for investments, and we are making Guyana one of the most attractive places in many respects. An education destination, a tourist destination, a healthcare destination, an investment destination. Those are our goals that we are working towards. And these budgets are laying the foundation for us to achieve those objectives. For the first time, we have gotten an opportunity as a country to build out our country so that we can achieve that potential which we know we have, so that we can properly exploit our resources. As I speak, we are building a road from the Quarantine Public Road at 58 Village all the way to Kanji Creek. That has never been done. We could have never done a road like that. Since in the 50s, Cherry Jagan used to speak about these linkages, field to market road. Since in the 50s, now is the first time that we can actually build those roads. And we are building them from Kanji Creek all the way to number 58 Village on the Quarantine. That is the type of linkages that will transform this country. All the roadways that we are linking, 2-3 roads up the East Coast, you will see unfolding an industrial park at Enmore that will begin this year. So, my friends, we have a very, very exciting financial year ahead of us, a very exciting year for the developmental trajectory and agenda of our country. Unfortunately, but as expected, we have a miserable bunch on the opposition, completely visionless, completely hopeless, completely useless. But we will travel on. We can't allow them to hold back the developmental train that is Guyana and Guyana's economy. I want to thank you very much for spending the past hour with me. I think we have had a good discussion in respect of the court case and the importance of that ruling on our parliamentary and constitutional democracy, as well as on the rule of law and good governance. And I believe also that we have had an insightful and informative engagement in respect of Budget 2023. Next week, Tuesday, of course, I will not be able to host the program, as I will be in the National Assembly participating in budget debates of 2023. I have no doubt that you will be joining us there, and you will be following very keenly the exchanges that will take place between the government and the opposition on the floor of the National Assembly, but most importantly, that you will continue to seek to understand what Budget 2023 holds for Guyana and for its people. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. Take care, and I'll see you soon.